So, first up, let's invite Martin Grimeland to join us up here on the panel. Martin, come on forward. Big round of applause. So, Martin, we're going to have to share the mic, mate. So, you know, if I pull it away from you, if you talk too much, don't be offended, please. Right. Okay. Sorry. Okay, first up. So, Martin, what's your story? What's your journey, and how is it that you're a part of tonight's session?
I moved here to Newcastle in October last year. Before that, I lived in London for 3 years, working in a startup there. And that startup went pretty well. We grew a startup from 500,000 monthly active users to 50 million monthly active users. And it was a game-based learning platform. After 3 years, I worked really hard for 3 years, and with my wife we decided to move to Newcastle, and I stepped down a little bit to kind of relax a little bit after those pretty intense 3 years. So that kind of brought me here, and then I've met with the Newcastle Business Centre and spoken with them, and that's kind of how I've been invited here. Yeah.
So why choose Newcastle to be your new home?
Well, my wife's family lives in Singleton, so Newcastle is kind of the closest city to Singleton. Plus, coming from London, we weren't really too keen on moving to Sydney. It's a bit too busy. London is like 10 million people. Before that, I lived in Lima in Peru, and that's 14 million or 12 million. So it was about time to come back to a little bit smaller city where any travel is like 1.5 hours. So Newcastle was a pretty perfect place for that. It's just a little bit smaller than Oslo, which I feel right at home. So yeah, it's pretty perfect.
So you're a native Oslo, are you?
Yeah, native Oslo, yeah.
So what's your background in terms of the whole tech area?
Well, I'm a software developer. And I've been in software development for 12 years and always kind of been in startups ever since I started. So mostly I've been in a startup in the States, in Boston, worked there for 6 months as an intern, and then worked in a few companies in Oslo at a startup as well, and then to Lima in London. So that's how, yeah.
What is it that you like about working with startups?
I think it's the pace and the challenges that you face, and also if you're in a startup, you don't have a very specific defined role. Everyone has to kind of pitch in to get the job done. So I think for Kahoot, for instance, at some point I had to start up the office in Austin because, well, I was the one who needed a person in Austin, so okay, I'm now managing an office in Austin. And there's just stuff that you have to do because it's a startup, and yeah, everyone has to do whatever needs to be done. So, yeah.
So one of the things that always fascinates me about startups and the process that happens is that at what point do people fear or feel that it's going too fast and they have to get off the train, or has that been your experience to date? Or is there a point where you think, no, got to be in here all the way?
Yeah, I think it's... I don't think that it's... I haven't got the feeling that it's going too fast. It's more I've gone as far as I want, kind of. I've been able to reach what I wanted from the beginning. In one startup that I worked in Oslo, I worked in it for 3 years. The company started taking a different direction to what I really wanted. So then, for me, that was the time to find a different challenge, a new challenge.
And first, for your wife, coming back here has, I guess, made a difference, closer to family. Is she in the tech industry as well?
Yeah, she is in UX design. So actually, that's how I met her. We met doing a project in Oslo. So she's in the same industry. She actually worked in Kahoot as well with me. So, yeah.
So tell us a little bit about Kahoot and what is it about, what's the audience, and where did it come from and where is it now?
Well, Kahoot came from, it was a collaboration between 4 people in Oslo and London. And it's a game-based learning platform. It's used a lot in education. And so it was predominantly schools that would use the tool. Had a lot of users in the States. I think 80% of all students in the States have used Kahoot at some point. I mean, I was visiting schools in the States and signing T-shirts. It was insane. But it's a game, so you have one main screen that shows the game, and then you have multiple devices connecting to that one game and interacting with that game. So that's how the game works. And yeah, it's used in learning, both in education, in schools, and also in companies. So big companies use it as well. You know.
So this is a good example of gamification of learning to some extent, or?
I think gamification is a little bit. I try not to throw gamification around too much. Gamification means, for me, you have a form, and you try to make it fun by making it into a game. Kahoot was more a game from the ground up. We built a game that had a pedagogy built into it to maximize the learning effect of it. I think the engagement that you got from a tool like that in education makes it even more effective. So it was not a gamification as such. It's based on a game, but taking advantage of that to achieve something within education.
And then you went from that platform over to Human Perspective, is that right?
Yeah, so Human Perspective is pretty recent. So I came here to Australia in October and to Newcastle in January. And for those who haven't applied for the visa for Australia, it's a bit of an effort. So that took a long time. And then after that, I set up my own company here in Newcastle, and that's Human Perspective. And out of Human Perspective, I do mostly contract work. I do tech advisor roles in different startups, mostly within my network in London, Oslo, working with a company in Sydney and one in Canada. But that's mainly what I'm doing. And then I work on a few different concepts as well that I want to continue to work on as a software developer, building an application.
Oh, wonderful. So what's your experiences? You're working with everyone, you're consulting, you're quite involved in the industry. Have you noticed anything that is different between working in either Newcastle or Australia compared to working over in Europe? How is the tech world kind of functioning? Is there any difference?
I think, well, I don't have many months here in Newcastle, so I mean, I've only been here for 4 months. So I haven't got a lot of experience in the startup scene here. I hope to get more experience and get more involved. I do find London is such a big city, so compared to London, the good thing about Newcastle is that it's a tight community in a way. Like if you have an interest and you know someone else that has the same interest, there will be a connection. Whereas in London, that's hopeless. Like if there's so many people that there's a very little chance that you have a connection with that one person. So that's a good thing here. It's very similar to Oslo. It's the kind of a similar state in Oslo.
So do you find the closeness, the proximity to others here in Newcastle you might not have done it yet, but that could potentially breed to more collaboration, open up new ideas, and at least, if not collaborating, at least sharing ideas on how to do this or do that when it comes to marketing your business or building the business?
Yeah, if I understood the question, I think it definitely means that if you're in a community where it's easy to find people who have the same interest, maybe the same passion and inspired to work on something together, it definitely has an amplifying effect. So I think that's a good. It's definitely a very big positive with Newcastle compared to London. London deals with that in a slightly different way. They have specialised groups of interest using Meetup, which is a service to kind of get people together over a certain topic. So they do that to still be able to have that kind of amplifying effect. But that's definitely one of the things that you'd see be amplifying those kinds of efforts in Newcastle.
Now, one of the things, we're all about scaling up for the startups.
Yep.
So for yourself and your experience, what do you think are the key challenges trying to get startups to attract major investors, or people are going to take you to that next level?
Well, that's a difficult question. I think, in my experience, the team is the most important thing. Obviously, you need a good idea. You need a good whatever it is idea that you're working on. But you also, at the end of the day, in my experience, it's the team, it's the people in the company that the investors will invest in. And what they trust is that you might not get it right the first time, second time, third time, fifth, 10th time, but that because they believe in the people in the company, they know that you will get it right eventually, or they think it's a good chance that you will get it right eventually. So from my perspective, it's the key is to have the right people.
Yeah, keeping the right people together and supporting each other to make sure the best outcome is possible. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, that's really wonderful. Martin, that's all we have time for to chat about tonight. So thank you so much for coming on. Yep. Really, really glad that you have moved to town and provided us with a new knowledge base for startups.
And it's wonderful to think that, we're almost akin with Oslo. Perhaps we could do a sister city program.
I was actually thinking that we should try to do that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll put you down that. So when you've got that happening, come and see us and we'll talk all about it.
Yeah, we'll do that. Okay, thanks.
We're going to cut now to an ad break. Thanks so much.